All right, everyone. In the wake of the Iran strike, you've increasingly got tales from the legacy media asking basically this, saying Trump is threatening world stability. What can be done? I would like to ask a slightly different question, which is that if Trump is destabilizing the world, who cares? The stability of this last era has mostly not worked for the average person in this world. Think about the plight of the average person. We're not talking about states themselves as collectives. We're not talking about the rich or the powerful. Look at the average American. The average American fundamentally spent the last decade being told that they didn't really matter, that they needed to take a haircut in the quality of life and change the way they did things, and they were wrong and despicable and bigoted. The average third worlder, they're still starving on a single bowl of rice a day. They're still living in a thatched hut or a tin shacked, shanty or something somewhere. They're still working 14-hour days, 6 days a week probably. The average state of the world for the lower classes especially hasn't really gotten better in a long time. We can say, well, we've eradicated the most serious poverty in some places. Yes, but you've replaced it with much more wide-reaching almost poverty. Taking a bunch of people who are extremely poor and a bunch of people who are a little bit outside of poverty and squishing them together into a group that's sort of a hybrid, so they've got enough to eat, but the people that were in the upper portions of the lower working class can't even possibly get ahead. I don't consider that charitable, especially when you're doing it at the centralized level with taxpayer money. It's not private charity. It's not charitable in any sense anyway, and doesn't really make sense. We look around at the world. Did Donald Trump start mutually assured destruction? Did Donald Trump begin the grand chessboard? Did Donald Trump okay companies dumping toxic waste all over the place? Did he send heavy industry to Southeast Asia, destroying U.S. jobs while at the same time polluting and abusing people in Southeast Asia? Trump didn't do any of these things. If that's the natural order that people are seeking to maintain, if that's the stability that we want in the world, I don't want it. I don't want that stability. If the globalistic world, where free trade, which is a good thing, and free travel in the touristic sense, which is also a good thing, are nonetheless combined with the erasing of national borders and every form of cultural identity until the entire world is nothing more than a hodgepodge of bland, boring crap that has no variety to it. Not only does this eliminate, ironically, actual diversity, if you want to maintain that stability, I don't want it. I'm not interested in that sort of stability. I've said many times, for instance, if I go to India, I'm not going to McDonald's. I'm not interested. If I have a problem with somebody's culture, somebody's people, the way they do business, their cuisine, the legal system, I just won't go there. Problem solved. It's very, very voluntary. If Trump is tearing apart the so-called stability of the last few decades, who cares? It's not working for anyone. The stability of Obama was we drone a lot of people overseas. It's a silent war. We're droning a lot of people. There's mass unemployment, significant levels of unemployment, and even more underemployment. People are losing wealth. The United States is slowly losing its economic footing in the world. Why would the people of the United States want that? Can I ask a question? At what time in history has it ever been considered noble or good or right for the people of a country to be self-sacrificial and just to simply lose the will to govern their own affairs? Case of the UK, of course, cucking to the EU in many ways now, or in the case of the US, we are the polar power of the world in the naval sense. We are one of two powers in the world economically, along with China, major powers. We're one of two major players in the nuclear sense, along with Russia. We've got a dominant position in the world, and yet we've, for some time now, had people, so-called leaders, telling us we need to retire from the world stage in that role and reduce our impact in the world and play nice with others that we've already subjugated. While that sounds nice and kind and inclusive and all of these other buzz terms, it really isn't pragmatic now, is it? Because other countries may not act the same if we do. I would just put that out there. In the larger, more global scope, though, how has the current world order worked for the average person anywhere in the world? Did war magically break out when Trump took over office, or was it already ongoing? Because I thought that Bush began a bunch of wars and Obama some more. I thought that the Arab Spring uprisings of supposedly popular movements that were really just fundamentalist, violent bigots, I thought that was fomented under Obama's regime and with his blessing and in some cases active help. I don't think it was Trump who did that. I think it was Barack Obama. I think it was Bush who started the deficit spending. I think it was Bush who started all these stupid wars. I think you have to go back to the 50s to start our adventurism in the Middle East and look back to literally the Eisenhower administration to find the first time that we dicked around with the Iranians. We've done it since then 2 other times. In the 1970s, you do realize that there was a report, and a lot of people don't understand this because it was quickly buried. The Pentagon's own reporting was declassified a few years ago, showing that U.S. intel helped Saddam Hussein gas the Iranian troops during their little spat, because initially we backed Saddam Hussein. Then we stopped backing Saddam when he wanted to be independent, overthrew him anyway, installed the current leadership in Iraq that's now kicking us back out, supposedly, while we actively ignore them and run a no-fly zone. It's an interesting situation, but it's not Trump that started it. And if he tears up that foreign world order as well, if he tears up the so-called stability of the Middle East, which is a laughable term anyway, if he tears that up by getting us uninvolved in that region and fixates our sights elsewhere, maybe an American Spring, maybe we can do something about the fact that there are a bunch of socialist and communist regimes in the Americas, which there shouldn't be. Maybe we should work on Venezuela and Cuba and some of these other countries. Maybe we should talk to our friends instead of worrying about what's happening in the Middle East. Maybe we should focus on a big stick doctrine. Maybe we should pivot to a TDR-style doctrine in the naval sense and say to Iran, look, we're going to leave you alone completely. We don't care what you do with missiles. But if you attack any U.S. target, we're just going to sink your entire Navy. We'll consider it an act of war, sink your Navy as a reprisal, and then we'll go on with our lives. Keep the shipping lanes clear. There will be no fucking casualties. Maybe we should do that. Because, of course, those shipping lanes are critical to U.S. industry, too. It would be an act of war if Iran were to try to throttle the Straits of Hormuz. But they're not doing that right now. They're literally just being in their own country, and I don't really care what they do there. As far as our embassy in Iraq, fuck the embassy. And honestly, fuck the nation of Iraq at this point. If we're getting kicked out by the government there, let's fucking leave. It's as simple as that. It's not Trump that started the engagement, though, and if he gets us out of Iraq, whether it's because their parliament voted to expel us or not, good. Oh my God, we lost stability in the region. No, we gained stability. That's not our country. We're nowhere near them. Let them fight over things. They've always have and they always will, dude. People fight over shit. We don't need to be the guarantor of every border in the world. It's funny, the liberals right now want us to guarantee every other border but our own. So we must do some Cold War posturing with Russia over Ukraine. We must safeguard Iraq. We must safeguard assets or locations in Syria. We must safeguard in Korea. We must safeguard everything else in the world. Every other border must remain stable and guarded by U.S. troops, and we kill anything that crosses it, with the exception of the U.S. border. That one's supposed to be torn apart entirely and be totally malleable. Very interesting. So yeah, if Trump is tearing apart that stupid stability, so be it. That's not a bad thing for the average person in the world. That's about all. Peace out.